Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Art of Creation show, where we look at how choice creates, and different possibilities for creating a life and a living that can actually work for you. Can you imagine? I will be your host, Rebecca Boswell, and today we have two guests who I actually have names for, and two guests that they can introduce because I don't actually know their names. So Linda and Adam Johnson, and then who do we have in the background?
Oh, we have Batman. So Batman's over there.
Awesome. Love it.
Then we have Yola. Oh, here comes Yola.
Over there.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. So cool. So thank you for choosing to come and be with us today, and to also choose a location that that invites them into our episode today too. That is just so sweet and yummy. And so I'm really excited to see that. I loved posting the picture this morning, the picture, Adam, that you took last year during the Specialness of You event, where you had the light set up, and Batman, to me, like, all I see is unicorn. Like,
totally.
There's the unicorn in the picture. There he is. Beautiful.
Right?
So thank you guys so much for joining us today. Usually I do a little more of an introduction, so we'll kind of back up. So Linda and Adam, actually, you're both coaches working with people, bodies, minds, spirits, horses, whatever they want to bring to the table. I know you guys have an extensive background. Adam, you started out in psychology. I know, Linda, you started, I believe, in sales and marketing as, going and conquering the world. From that direction, and then you guys came together and have been working with horses for over 10 years. You're certified in Equine Massage and Acupressure. So cool. And I know, Adam, you went from psychology to being a wellness consultant in Macrobiotics, and also, you are a yogurt, as we say in our family, a yoga teacher, and you both use energetic tools, use a lot from the Access Consciousness methodology of transforming energy and the way that we receive and perceive the world. And lately, you've been doing a lot of work with this Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider program, which is really what I'm excited to talk with you about today. Although I do want to acknowledge that, this is really part of, so we'll go, who knows where we'll go, but this is really this larger story of what you guys have been creating. I know you've been doing a lot with Thriving Relationship, from your podcast to, things you facilitated around that area, not to mention even just the relationship that you've been facilitating with each other, and what you've been with each other in the world, which is just really beautiful and magical for anyone who's been able to witness that. And also, I know, Linda, you have, you've contributed to 4 best-selling books, which is amazing. One of which is fully written by you, Beyond the Stigma of Abuse. So, from thriving relationships to going beyond the stigma of abuse, beyond victimhood, now using also all of the energies and capacities gifted to us with the horses. Where can we go with this? I know a lot of what you guys really have been talking about for years has been, what if there was never any wrongness in your world, and what if there were no mistakes? I love to say that too. What if you could make 1,000,000 mistakes and never be wrong? Like, what would that be like? So after all of that, now that I've blah, 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 all of that about you, thank you so much for being here. And I wonder, where would you like to begin this conversation, to begin inviting people to different possibilities wherever they are in their life, whether they've ever been near a horse or not, whether they've grown up riding horses or not? Like, why horses? And let's start there. Yes. Like, why? And not why as much as like, you know, what is it about horses that you know that you've realized that you can now bring into this discussion to share with us?
Well, I'd like to start by saying that Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, says that everything he learned from a horse. And at first, I didn't quite get that. It was so profound. And he's also the creator of the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider program, which we co-facilitate, along with many other facilitators around the world. And through this exploration with horses over the last over 10 years or so, I'm continually amazed at the contribution that horses are in my life and what I've learned from them. And before starting this program with Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, I basically like threw out everything I had ever learned about horses, about riding, about really everything. And I started asking questions, and that's really the basis of this is asking questions. There's really no form and structure or a training or significance around any of the tools. It's really following the energy and asking and being in communion with everyone and everything, and working with the horse and asking the horse questions, and because they are conscious beings and many times know more than what I can even perceive. And Adam, would you like to?
And just being around horses is such an invitation to be more aware and more present in your life. It's horses will let you know if you're not being present with them. They don't like to be touched without presence. They'll kind of look at you with an annoyed look and kind of
they'll like
you'll get a clear signal if you're touching them with like kind of
or they'll
spacing out
like
and touching them.
Give me what I really want, or like give it over here.
Yes, exactly. They'll move away, and you know, part of this work is asking the horse, what does a horse require? What does the horse's body require? And following the energy and not going with some fixed points of view about what we know. It's really this beautiful receiving and gifting and the magical possibilities that are created through that, that we all are. We're all, you know, this magic, if we choose it, this connection to everyone and everything, the earth and the beautiful trees and nature. And what contribution can that be to our lives and our living when we lower our barriers and receive all of that, all the information? It's wondrous.
How much of our lives do we actually miss out on because we're not really in it? We're either replaying something that has already happened, or we're already trying to figure out what's going to happen, and then the actual living part gets missed. We're not there for it.
That's so true, because the horses, again, as Adam had said, is if you're not totally present in that moment, the horse will let you know. And I've actually been on my cell phone at the other place where we used to board our horses, and I was talking to a family member, and I wasn't being present, and I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on around me. And Batman, the white horse, he basically, this is the only time he's done this, he came like charging towards me, and I was like, whoa, you know, like it woke me up, right, Adam? Because Adam was with Yola, you know, a ways away, and I was like, whoa, like, what is this? What am I really being me? Am I being present? And I really wasn't. I was buying into all this other stuff, that all the drama and trauma of the person I was talking to on the phone. And I was like, okay, I'm going to hang up now. And
yeah.
then,
He was like, who are you being? Come back to me.
Right, come back. And so that's been such a cool gift that horses are, because it's like, if you're not being present, then they'll definitely let you know. And there's another possibility available. Yeah, that's Yola. She's
like, look at me.
I know. She's like, look at me. You're talking about Batman.
Yeah.
So,
hey guys. Oh, hey Brett. Yeah, that's awesome. So I love this, seeing people pop on and off. So yeah, it's really cool. I shared this in another episode once, where I was asked to come and facilitate, and hi there, Batman, to help facilitate and sort of play with an older horse energetically, and spent the day there. And when I left, I just looked over at the woman who had brought me, and I said, make no mistake, who facilitated who here. It completely opened my eyes to so many different energies and just different possibilities that are available. And that piece of constantly, like for me, constantly looking at, okay, so how much allowance can I choose today? How much allowance can I be? What if everything was just an interesting point of view and I didn't have to get so attached to it? And then, you see, you go and you're with a horse, and the horse is basically like, yeah, that works for me, or no, that doesn't work for me, or here, let's give this a shot. How about this? How about this? Try this, maybe that. Right. And like, they are constantly in the question. They're not having a point of view about you or what you're doing or what you're being. They're just being. So to be able to step into that space with them and be like, oh my gosh, like this, like massive creature, like it, like I remember like having this sense of like, oh, I never really knew what that energy of love was that I was looking for. And I'm like, this isn't even love, but this is this like thing that I try to use that little word for, where it was just through my whole body. And this huge horse is just like leaning against me, where I'm like, I'm so little. Like if I, like comparatively, right? I'm like, if I just move, this horse would fall down, and he like isn't going away, and he's just being there, and I get to just be here too. And it was one of the most beautiful, you used the word communion, and it was one of the most beautiful and intimate things I think I'd ever experienced before, when it was like, oh my gosh, that's even possible. So is that some of what you guys play with when you are when you're offering these clinics, these conscious horse, conscious rider programs? What are you inviting people to, and do they have to have a background with horses to do that? What if they're scared of horses, right? Yeah, they're huge sometimes.
One of my favorite exercises that we do in the conscious horse, conscious rider workshops is the trust exercise, where you lay on the back of a horse, bareback, and you just lean back. Yeah. And you drape your entire body over theirs leaning back, and just allow them to completely support you and take care of you.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And it's, there's, I haven't experienced anything else like it, to lay on top of a horse and just have them supporting me, and to let go and trust like that.
Yeah. And to be completely vulnerable with such a large animal, and to have a sense of trusting you and your body and the horse and the earth and the universe, and to actually acknowledge that the universe has your back. The universe has your back. The horses, if you ask a horse, will you take care of me? And that's another tool we actually talk about in Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, is before you get on a horse to go on a ride or whatever, is asking the horse, will you take care of me? Because the horse has a point of view. And I've gotten on a horse before these tools, and the horse definitely was not going to take care of me, and it didn't go so well. So even that, even asking, you know, will you take care of me? And it just creates this connection, and the horse definitely will. If you get a yes, then it's so beautiful.
And that's part of the trust exercise too, is you're trusting the horse, and you're also trusting your awareness. And before you've climbed on top of them, you've asked, will you take care of me? You've already asked them, will you take care of me before?
Yeah.
He's like, I will. Pick me.
I know. Pick me. Yay, Batman. Yeah. And he was actually, he was at the clinic that Gary and Susie did in Denton, Texas a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It was in 2016. And wow, has he been a gift in our life, right? He's just continuously amazing.
Stay close up.
Hi. What would you like to say, Batman? Huh? What would you like to contribute? Huh? What would you like to contribute?
You know what really pops out with everything, he's so sweet, with everything that you're saying is it's like you're really looking also at all these places where, you know, maybe we're not willing. He's so cute. Where maybe we're not willing to even be present with ourselves and have intimacy with ourselves.
Yes.
And so, you know, now in being willing to open up to the possibilities of being these different things with Batman, with a horse, with whoever you're with in the clinic or at home, that suddenly it's a different space that you can be in your life with the people in your household, with the people at work.
That's so true, Rebecca. When I'm not being the space I be, that huge space. Hi, peekaboo, Batman. Like they'll let us know. And Yola, like if I'm not being that space, it's now maybe Yola would like to join at some point. They definitely let you know. And they are such great facilitators. We're like, make no mistake about us, about it. They are the facilitators. And they're really almost leading the class, right, Adam? Like and of course it's the participants and the energy of what all of us create. And wow, the horses just facilitate so much, and we're so grateful for that.
Yeah. You know, so I don't have, you know, a pedigree of equine experience. I've dabbled here and there, and then had been given some really amazing possibilities for playing with and facilitating some horses over the last several years. But one of the things that I really recognize from sort of the horse world is even just a lot of the languaging. And one of your questions that you were asking is, what if you could learn more, you know, from your horse than it can learn from you? And what immediately pops for me is a lot of the languaging, like, you know, like breaking a horse, right? Like that's number one. First, you have to break your horse, right? And then everything else is really about how to, you know, do all these things that are kind of taking away from the horse to make it what you have decided you'd like it to be, and then teaching it to be the right way. And what you're saying is that we really can access so much more and so many more possibilities when we begin looking at, okay, so what is actually the consciousness of the horse, and what can they invite us to that is like, you know, do we really want to break their spirit? I mean, it's kind of even fascinating that phrase is used so lightly. So where, like, did you always, like, when did you come to playing with horses, and had you come from a more traditional background with horses, or had you always kind of been playing with alternative approaches to to being with them?
I came upon conscious horse, conscious rider pretty early on in my experience with horses, which was nice to not have to unlearn or have all these filters to undo.
Mm-hmm.
So that made things easier to not have so many preconceived notions of what the right way was to be with the horse and how they were supposed to be for me, and all of the traditional ways of being with horses that are all about control and really like not communion, though more of like control through force.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you're saying, Rebecca, what if force really isn't required at all?
Yeah.
And actually, Gary Douglas, the founder of Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, talks about that force really isn't required, that it's a communion with the animal. And when you're asking questions and receiving the energy and really be in tune with what is and what works for both, it's really this beautiful partnership and communion beyond this reality and beyond anything that I had read about growing up.
Yeah.
I in high school, well, junior high and high school, I took some like English writing lessons, and there definitely wasn't this communion with the horse. It was definitely like, this is the way you do it. This is, you're doing it wrong. And I got so frustrated because it just seemed like I could never get it right, according to what my teacher was saying. So I kind of gave up in a way. And until about 10 years ago or so, we had a horse come into our life through like a rescue, and it was through networking, and started to really play with the tools that Gary talks about, that I realized there was such a different way that's really not talked about. And that's really such a gift that we invite people to in Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, is to ask them if they would, for a moment or for that time during the class, if they could please leave what they've learned or bought into, and just kind of all the projections and expectations and all of that, and just start with this space of being in communion with the animals and with the earth and with the energy that and the magic that we all be. And really, that's the magic of Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, because they get blown away that it's actually way easier, way more magic by being in communion with the horse and everything around. Wouldn't you say, Adam? Like it's such a beautiful energy. And so that's why I really love this work and the tools, because it's so different. There's not any form, structure, significance, or points of view. It's really being in that moment, fully present, and asking questions and receiving the information and the energy. And it's magic. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I know that you guys look at, different elements for creating intimacy, especially, in your work with thriving relationship. And what I really hear you talking about here is playing with, what is it to be honoring, and, what honoring is available here with this, this other being, this very large being. And when we begin to ask those questions, how much are we asking, how much we can be honoring of ourselves? How honoring are we of ourselves? And so what, when we can actually get into what is that like with this, possibly scary, like it may be easier if it's a puppy to be like, what is it to be honoring, right? But if you've not been around horses, and some of them are pretty massive, and there's this thing of like, oh, wait a minute, am I safe? Like, am I going to die here? Like, what's going on? And yet, you know, when we can take all that away and then begin to, like you said, really come into the space and drop all those barriers and have that honoring instead of, you know, the force, like I need to make it go here. I need to, you know, do this and have it do this and it's supposed to look like that. I mean, you said even when you were learning about it, like you couldn't get it right. And so you just wanted to give up. And it's like, how much do we do that in life, right? Like, I can't get this life thing right. So I might as well just give up. So if you can go and have this experience of not giving up and knowing what it's like to be in a place of honoring and begin to allow that to be part of who you are and how you're being in the world, then what if you didn't have to get it right? You just had to show up.
Totally. That's totally. Thank you so much. That was so beautifully said. Because it's like all of us when we're being, when we be, and we're that energy, space, and consciousness, and we lower our barriers, a different possibility is available. And it's so beautiful to see people in the classes that are possibly afraid, or they've never been around horses, or maybe they were on a horse and they were thrown off, and then they use the tools and they really begin to trust, because it's like when you follow the energy, and the horse will let you know if there's something you know that's not working for them, or if you're not being yourself, the horse will definitely let you know. And it's amazing at the end of the workshops that we've facilitated and gone to, and it's a total change, and people like go, wow, when I be when I know right. I know that means like and it's so beautiful and magical, and it's life-changing. Like it's so cool.
Well, I know that you both have facilitated using the tools of emphasis added, of using right voice.
That was Yola.
That was Yola. She was drumming.
Trough.
Yeah,
She put her
I love
in
it.
the water.
Yeah, she put her whole foot in the water trough.
Boom, boom.
She's like, I want a bath.
So I know that you guys have used the tools of right voice for you as well. We actually just had Sylvia Puentes on the show, and she was speaking with us about a lot of the tools in right voice. And I know one of the things that we talked about with her was this dropping the barriers and you know, allowing yourself to show up with your voice and have that vulnerability that you're talking about here with the horses as well. And what I also get is this thing of like, the horses are very happy to voice and express whatever is going on, whatever's up in their world. And so even if you're not speaking, it's like you're also inviting this energetic, right? The first language of energy, this energetic communication, and it's not even communication, it's like an exchange energetically, where you're voicing in a way that just goes beyond the voice box.
Totally.
So what have you experienced with that, you know, that people can play with?
Well, one thing we do in the conscious horse, conscious rider classes is energy work on horses. And something people often don't realize is that you can drop your barriers and perceive what's going on in the horse's body. And you can actually say your horse is kind of limping on the left side. There's something going on. You can ask to tap into their body and get an awareness of their body, looking out through their eyes, and ask, where do I need to work? Where is the energy required? And if you totally push down your barriers, you can have this awareness of, you might feel it in your left foot, which would be their back left foot, or you might feel something on your back, which might be their withers, kind of the back part of their spine. So you can actually, if you totally push down your barriers, you can have these energetic awarenesses of what's going on in their body.
Yeah.
And you can put your hands on that part of their body, the part that you had the awareness of, and ask, what energies are required here to change this? And just that easily, you can begin to facilitate change and more ease for the horse.
Yeah.
And it's one of the really cool things that's possible with total vulnerability, is these awarenesses of how you can contribute to an animal's body. And you could also do this with a dog. If your dog is limping or your dog is injured, asking to push down your barriers and ask where they're requiring contribution, where they're requiring energy work to facilitate their body.
Yeah.
So it's one of the magical things that's available when you push down your barriers and function more like a horse. And horses are always functioning like that. Their barriers are always down.
Yeah.
They're always totally intensely perceiving the world around them. And so sensitive. A fly, like a little fly, lands on a horse, which is so big, and they immediately, their tail swishes around and knocks off the fly. So they're always functioning in such a high state of awareness. And
and there was one example of a client that we were working with, and she had a horse that was lame in the front left leg, and she had gone to the vet, and they had done like a bunch of work on the left side, on that leg or on the shoulder. And when she called us and we came out, and like Adam's saying, we connected with the horse and we asked what was required to shift this. First of all, did the horse desire to shift this? And we got a yes. And we said, okay, if so, how can we contribute to you? What energies are required, and where can we facilitate this? And we actually got that it was on the right side. It was the other side that they hadn't been, playing with before. So after doing some energy work and so forth, and the horse kind of, when they release, a lot of times they'll yawn or, different things like that. And then it shifted it. And it was just asking the horse, what does the horse know? What, and being in that communion and connection. And that was really cool. And that comes up so many times in the classes, that people will tell us that this is something that hasn't been able to shift. And when you ask the horse what's required, it's easy to, if you follow the energy, and we talk about some different energy processes through access consciousness and some different questioning, it's surprising what will shift. I mean, horses are actually way easier than people to work on. They'll release, they really desire, if they say yes and they desire to shift it, it's like boom. It's like they shift it. And a lot of times, like in the clinics, something's cleared from the horse, and then if the owner is not in the class and they still have their points of view or projections, or things couldn't have shifted, sometimes it does, they recreate it. So what we really like in the classes, if possible, is for the horse's owner to also be in the class, or at least to talk to them and to explain, can you also, destroy and uncreate your projections and expectations and separations and everywhere this was created. And what if it's possible for this instantaneous healing and change and transformation? And so that if they're willing to, that's helpful. And if they're not, then sometimes these things reoccur, because the owner actually sometimes likes that there's, like something to solve, a problem, or there's something else. So it's very interesting using the tools and the questions.
Yeah, it's really cool. My horse and I are going to this workshop. I love that. What I really get with this too, though, is this thing of like, okay, so, if you have a horse, great. And even if you don't have a horse, you know, if you work with bodies, play with bodies, have a body, right? It seems like this really gives people the space to experience energy in a way that is, the word isn't louder, but it's kind of like training wheels. Like, you know, if you're manipulating big blocks first and then you want to get into like fine tuning the intricacies, right? Like, you know, if you have all this stuff that's just a non-issue that you might have with people, like all this extra stuff, right? You get to just go and experience these possibilities that are available. And then when you're going back to work with human bodies, you know, it just seems like it would open so many more spaces and possibilities for what you can perceive in different human bodies and through your body.
Totally. Rebecca, that was huge for me. It was about 7 years ago when Gary did a conscious horse, conscious rider class in Boerne, Texas. And it was really one of the first times that I got my capacities with energy and working with energies and actually perceiving the shift in the horse's body. And because the horses will let you know immediately if you're in the correct spot, so to speak, and will move and will yawn. And they're so expressive. It almost seems way more than people because they're so connected to the energy and the energetic blocks that it just gave me confidence. Like, oh, wow, I have this ability. Let me play with it more. And the more that, like, for instance, earlier this year, Yola, it was like super cold in January here in Texas. And at the ranch, there was some ice and she slipped on the ice and she had an injury. I think it was her front left foot. And so when I went out to work on her, I said, Yola, where would you like me to work? And she lifted up her hoof and I, you know, did a little bit of work on it. And then she showed me her knee and then, you know, she pushed her shoulder and it's such a beautiful, it was such a beautiful communion. And it just was like, wow, these tools are I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for, this possibility of total communion. And so you don't have to have a horse, or, you know, you can maybe like horses. Maybe you've never ridden. Maybe
you're scared to death, but
maybe you're scared
intrigued a little.
Maybe you're intrigued. And so let's look at that. And also for me years ago, and when I talked to Gary about it, and I was just so aware of, because the horses are prey animals. And so they're just like that zone of awareness of just being so aware of what is around and around them, right? And a stallion can be up to how many miles, Adam? Like the stallion of it
can be like 10 miles.
Like 10 or 11 plus miles of just this huge, just protecting, like his job, you know, protecting the herd. And I didn't realize that originally I perceived the fear as mine, and it actually wasn't mine. I was picking up the fear from the horse of what they were perceiving out there, and that was huge for me. And when I asked, who does this belong to, and I realized it wasn't mine, it was the horses, and that was really cool. So we've had people in sessions and in our classes that they're just so aware, and they're not aware of how aware they are until like we say, okay, use this tool. Who does this belong to? And it lifts. It's not there, so they return that, and they can be present in the moment. They can be present with the horse. So for me, that was really a turning point in terms of me realizing how aware I really am.
Yeah. And what a cool
what I mean?
way to use that tool where, you know, it's just, it's like this, it's almost like you have this like little lab where you can go and
Yeah.
you have this immediate response system where you can really play and be like, okay, what about this? What about that? And like really
Yes.
see it. Whereas out in the world, there's just so much, right? And everybody has their own so much going all at the same time. And then you have all this so much that's just like in between all the people's so much, right? But it's like you're out, there's physical space. You have the horses who are their own space. And then it's just your so much that starts to even trickle away as your barriers start to go down and you start to feel like, oh, maybe I can be safe in this, you know, in this just for now. We'll just try it for now. I can always pull them back up if I have to, right?
Yeah, it's so amazing, Rebecca, because people, you know, it's a 2-day class, right? So when a lot of times we'll have an intro then the night before the first day. And by the end of the second day, people are really trusting what they know. And they're so much more confident. And you can just see it the way they walk and the way that they're around the horses and also the way they're perceiving themselves in the world and with the earth and their connection to everything and everyone. Because it's like, how often have we cut off so much of what is going on around us, what all the energies, all the energetic contribution. And so that's really cool. Would you say, Adam?
And one other thing I wanted to mention about what you were saying, Rebecca, about like it's a lab of your awareness. I love that, and it's so true. And going off of the whole awareness that horses are prey animals, and horses function from a spherical awareness. They're aware.
All right, let's see. Well, they may have frozen a little bit. Spherical awareness seems to have jogged our internet. Well, while we're waiting for them, who has been commenting, and if there's anything that anyone is asking, because if you are asking, then please be sure to, there we go. Please be sure to put your questions in there so that we can bring them in for Adam and Linda before the end of the show. So if you have any questions, just let us know. Let's see. It says it cannot join at this time. There we go. Okay, he's getting added.
Oh, hello. I'm sorry. We got disconnected there for a second.
No worries. No worries. I just put a little message in the chat to see if anybody has any specific questions. And but can you recall where?
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It was like talking about working with horses as like a lab for consciousness.
Yes.
And
I love that.
And the way that horses function is, since they're a prey animal, they're super aware spherically. When I say spherically, it's like their awareness, they're aware in every direction. And some horses, like the stallions, are hyper aware, like can be 10 miles in every direction that they're tuning in for threats, potential predators to the herd that they're in. And when you're with a horse, they're functioning in that way where they're tuning into their environment for potential threats, something that could eat them. And a way that you can put your horse at ease is to ask to expand to occupy the same zone of awareness that they are occupying. Okay. And it's amazing in that, say you're with a horse and there's a dog maybe across the field as far as you can see. In the distance there's a dog, and maybe the horse suddenly starts to get nervous. You're walking with the horse on a rope, you're walking through the field, and all of a sudden the horse, its kind of head pops up, and it starts, you can tell it's getting a little nervous. And so in that moment, you can ask for your zone of awareness to expand to meet and go beyond the horse's zone of awareness.
Oh,
And
wow.
when your zone of awareness expands to meet the horse's zone of awareness, and you're both tuning into that dog together, when you tune into the dog and you're like, oh, it's okay, then the horse is like, oh, I
Okay.
can relax.
Yeah.
The herd is fine.
The herd is okay.
The herd of two. Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, how much can we use that out in our lives too, right?
Yes.
Just to say like, okay, so what would it take to increase my zone of awareness right now, whatever it is,
Right.
you know, whether it's here or, you know, however big, like, yeah, what else is possible even beyond
Totally.
where I am in this 10 seconds?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's
So one of the cool things that I am aware of is that you actually have a Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider clinic coming up, a 2-day and an intro class coming up next week in
That's
Austin, right?
Yes.
So how does it get any better than that? So
How does it get better?
yeah, so how would you like to invite who can come to this? Can anyone, like, when this trickles its way through the interweb and finds itself across the globe with someone who's never been near a horse but is like, oh my goodness, this is for me. Can they just show up, or how does that work?
Yes, absolutely. There's no prerequisites. So everyone is welcome, and we'd love to invite everyone, whether you're young or old, or you don't have to ride, you don't have to have any experience being around horses, or you can be an experienced horse person. And what else is possible with that? Like, what else, right?
See, they're
Everyone's
coming
different.
already from across the globe. They'll be landing soon.
Yay!
I
we'd
hear
love
their
to-
plane.
Yeah.
The plane.
Yes. Yes. So
Cool.
we'd love to invite anyone, and there's many facilitators actually also around the world, and you can find out more about Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider by going to www.conscioushorse.consciousrider.com. And
Cool.
yeah,
We will put that link.
Cool,
We will put
thanks.
that link
Thank you.
in the show notes. So
Thank you.
for all of you who are watching live, this does get uploaded to YouTube and then posted again later. And the YouTube edition will have all of the show notes there for your perusal and your enjoyment. So you'll be able to find all the links, because there are so many different ways to find Adam and Linda. You both have your own websites. I know they're getting totally updated and revamped.
yes.
Yes.
But will the URLs stay the same?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
they will.
cool. Awesome. So they both
Yeah.
have websites. Those links will be in the show notes. You guys also have the Thriving Relationship podcast that has a ton of archived episodes that people can listen to whenever they want. Is that true?
Absolutely, yes.
Cool. So
On
there's
Blog
that,
Talk.
and then and on Blog Talk Radio. Cool.
Yep.
So we'll put the link to that as well. Of course, we have Linda's book, Beyond the Stigma of Abuse, and then we can also put maybe a link to the other titles if you're interested.
Oh, thank you.
You can check out all of her magical words that she's collected for you in those 4 different publications. And what else? They can find you on Facebook. Smoke signals, maybe. Morse code.
Yeah.
Are there any other ways you like to be reached? Well, I know you have email, telephone. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So awesome. So Linda and Adam, it has been amazing. Merlin did ask, or Merline, if you need to be a horse rider, and what I heard you say is no. So you don't have to have a horse. You don't have to ride a horse. You don't even maybe have to fully know how much you like horses, because maybe that comes after you come to the class.
Yes.
Cool.
Definitely a possibility.
So, and then where can people find out more? Okay, cool, classes. Thank you. I'm just seeing this after. So we were with you, Merline. We had you covered. So
Cool.
thank you for that. And if there are any comments there that I missed over the course of the show, I will go back and make sure that that we look at those. So Linda and Adam, it's been a pleasure to have you. Of course, Noah and Batman, like totally awesome to have you too. And I wonder, is there anything else as we wrap up that you would like to share with the viewers or you'd like to voice and put out into the world?
Well, I just again like to thank Gary Douglas for these amazing tools and for creating Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, and also Susie Godsey as well, that we have learned so much from both of them, and what else is possible for all of us as we continue this magical adventure of connecting with everyone and everything, and the beautiful planet. Now that we had Earth Day just a few days ago, and what invitation can horses be to creating that, and to really have this communion with the earth, and what contribution can that be?
Yeah, and watch out, because you might almost start communing with yourself too.
Oh,
oops.
I know. Whoops.
Oops. Oh well, a little side effect. It could happen. It could occur.
I know.
Awesome.
Watch out.
Watch out. Your life may actually be way more fun than you ever imagined possible.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Adam and Linda. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you everyone watching live. Of course, we adore you. Thank you for contributing to the energy of the episode today. And all of you who are watching in the future, we adore you too. And we have you here with us even right now. We're so grateful that you're there in the world, and that now you have found this information, and I wonder what it can create moving forward. Truly, what else is possible, and what if it's far greater than anything that you ever imagined? So if you liked the episode today, please make sure to like the page here on Facebook, The Art of Creation Show. Please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and let us know if there's anyone else you would like to speak with, any conversations you'd like to be a part of, any topics you're curious about. And as always, keep asking, keep choosing, and we'll see you next week. I wonder what we'll discover next. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you
so
Bye.
much.
All right. Bye, you guys. Such a pleasure.